And a lot of people will get that wrong because they'll say, all right, let me do a lot of research and make sure I do understand. If I'm satisfied I understand, then I can tailor my argument.
Welcome back to another edition of the Retire As You Desire podcast. And boy, oh boy, do we have a special guest today. We have Chris Voss. He has been an incredible mentor from afar for me, just from a learning standpoint. I mean, his book, Never Split the Difference, has truly been one of my favorites. And the way that I was introduced to Chris, I didn't know of his book and what he had accomplished in his life until I was in a strategic coach session with Mr. Dan Sullivan. So Dan was telling us a story after he handed out Chris's book to everyone in the group. And he said, one of the gentlemen inside coach was at a conference with Chris and he heard him speak and went up to him at the restaurant or the bar area. And they started to have a conversation. And Chris was just the most charismatic, empathetic person that this guy had spoken to. And Dan Sullivan asked the guy, who paid the bill at the end of your conversation? And the guy looks at Dan and goes, well, it was me. So it was a great negotiation tactic. We're always in a negotiation, as what Chris says. So Mr. Voss, thank you for being here today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I appreciate the kind words. You know, those are quite those are great adjectives. And I will tell you, it's pretty easy to be charismatic if you just interesting people are interested. Anybody that I meet, I'm really interested in them. And you know, people aren't used to somebody who's actually interested, so it gives them a good feeling. And you know, you might be lucky enough that they would describe you with those adjectives after the fact, but I'm just genuinely interested in people.
And, you know, speaking of being interested, I know you have your newsletter. For everyone listening, I want you to take out your phones right now. And we're going to talk about this at the end of the show as well. But please send a text message. The number is 33777. That's the number that you want to send it to. And type in Black Swan Method. This is the newsletter that Chris and his team at the Black Swan Group have created. And this is going to give you a ton of incredible information, not only to make you more, you know, empathetic and charismatic, right, Chris? But, you know, what are some of the things that our listeners are going to get from your newsletter?
Well, the newsletter is concise and it's free.
Good.
So, and it doesn't matter that it's free. What matters, first of all, is that it's concise and it's actionable. So, for example, as we're speaking now, the most recent edition with the 10 phrases that reveal the dangerous hidden negotiations that you're in. The most dangerous negotiation is the one you don't know you're in. You know, and I often say we're in 5, 7, 11 negotiations every day. Well, how do you know what a hidden negotiation is? So finally I decided I might as well do a blog post on it, a newsletter article, the 10 most common indicators of a hidden negotiation, and then how to respond. So that's the kind of stuff that you get. It's a relatively concise article. Here are the phrases, here's what you say. Here's the area that might be involved, from collaboration to, you know, even if you're providing hospitality. If somebody says, how can I help you, to you, look, you're in a negotiation because you're talking about implementation there.
Right, right. And your phrases, they really go a long way. I mean, in the book here, I've read this a couple of times now. For everyone watching this and listening, get the book, Never Split the Difference. It's truly a game changer. You know, even when you go to the hotel and you ask the person, you go up to them and say, I'm going to be your worst customer today. And they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I just want a free upgrade for my hotel room, right? Those little things, Chris, how has that helped, you know, your followers, your leaders? And I know you work with a lot of business people. How have your teachings helped those folks who you help from your business?
Well, it's kind of twofold, and that a hotel suite upgrade is a great one because you got to get practice. You got to get small stakes practice for high stakes results. And you need to, where do you get practice? If you're checking into a hotel, this is a practice run. You're never going to end up any worse off than you were. And that method is a great way to practice to see what happens. Now, you'll find that the success rate is really high, but on a new skill, your amygdala is going to whisper in your ear, oh, this isn't going to work. Oh, they're going to reject it. They're going to get mad. The amygdala, that baby whispers in everybody's ear, whispers in my ear. And the only way that you counteract that whisper is to get some practice and get some data and some experience trying this stuff out. You try it out in small stakes, you do it enough times, and then spontaneously in a high stakes negotiation, you nail it.
Mm-hmm.
And as we're talking about this, I coached international kidnappings globally. I was the FBI's lead international kidnapping negotiator, always really a negotiation coach. So I'm coaching a businessman in a negotiation, kidnapping of his brother in the Philippines. Now, this guy was coachable. I know human nature. You know your business. I drop my human nature stuff in the Black Swan method that either me or any of my coaches could teach you. And we coach you, and then spontaneously you catch on. So here's what happened. We're coaching this young man on the methods to get the upper hand in the negotiation, giving the other side the illusion of control. Basically, under a topic that we call calibrated questions, typically what and how questions, calibrated for effect. We're coaching him. And spontaneously on his own, he comes up with a brilliant calibrated question. Kidnapper was really clever, dude. Wanted a daily per diem, if you will, to not harm the hostage. Look, I gotta take care of your son while I research your family to see how much money you have. So I want $200 a day to take care of your son. Now, as you might imagine, mom is like, pay, gotta save my boy. But I'm not coaching mom, I'm coaching the brother, because the brother's the most coachable. And I'm saying, here's the problem. Number one, we start paying $200 a day, which you can afford, because it was a wealthy family. These $200 a day is going to go on forever. This guy's making $200 a day, and this is going to last for God knows how long. Number one's problem. He's just got a revenue stream. Why would he shut that off? Number two, he's not actually researching your family. He's gauging your wealth by how easily you give in on this small demand.
Oh, wow.
So we gotta launch into a negotiation over the $200 a day, not because you can't pay it, but it'll shorten the process overall. You'll get to a deal quicker. We're going to do it very gently and very deferentially, which is a point of calibrated questions. And then we're going to change the game. So spontaneously on his own, about roughly 3 weeks into the kidnapping, this type of kidnapping is going to run typically somewhere between 14 and 28 days. I know this from experience. It's my market. So about 21 days in, the brother spontaneously on his own says, when we run out of money paying the daily rate, what's going to happen? And a Black Swan method, we refer to this as a time travel question. When what? When takes your counterpart to a specific moment in time. What is going to happen? It's a stealth confrontation. It's the other side doesn't see it as a confrontation, but it's focusing their attention on a moment in time in a very deferential way. You say it deferentially, the words are specifically chosen. We get away with it every time. And so he says, when we run out of money, paying the daily rate, what's going to happen? Now, our kidnapper, who is in fact a serial killer, you're dealing with serial killers in your own world, right? We're dealing with a real one here. There's a long silence on the other end of the line because we've been deferential the whole time. He feels in control. And he says, it'll be all right.
Wow.
Now, my negotiators don't really know what happened. I got a team deployed in country. They're reporting back to me every day. And they say, this is a conversation we just had. You know, the brother we're coaching came up with this on his own because he's coachable. And we're not sure, we think this sounds good, but we're not entirely sure how good it is. You know, I start doing a happy dance. I jump up and down. I'm like, he just promised to never hurt our hostage.
To
And
never hurt
I knew
the
we
hostage.
had him. I knew we had him. And we did have him at that point in time. Long story short, we continue to run our process. You know, the negotiation FBI 8 at the time, which has evolved into the Black Swan method, which is what we're teaching business people today. And we get enough information, we get our kidnapper to reveal enough information in the conversations. The Philippine National Police figure out where he is. They conduct a rescue operation. They hit the house that they think the kidnapper's in. It's his house, but it's where he lives. It's not where he's got the hostage.
Right.
They hit the house. His wife is there. She says, no, my husband isn't here. The Philippine police are like, well, you better tell us where we might find him. And she said, wow, we got another house. They tell him where the other house is. She tells him. The Philippine National Police hits the other house. Kidnapper ain't there either. But the hostage is in the basement in chains.
Wow.
They go in the basement, they rescue him, and then they hang out waiting for him to show up. He rolls in the door, and in law enforcement terminology, they put the gotchas on him. We gotcha. They cuffed him up, and our friend was tried and convicted and is currently incarcerated in the Philippines.
You drew me in with that story, just listening to that. And it's part of the art of storytelling, right, Chris? It's really, when you're in a negotiation, people don't understand what it takes for the other side to understand your side. There's always that differential. But how important is it for you to be on one side of the argument to understand someone else's side? How important is that?
Yeah, well, the first thing too is, you know, let's change some of the terminology just so our own amygdala doesn't whisper too loudly in our ear. And so let's look at a negotiation. Let's look at the adversary's situation. And I'm leery of the term argument because if you're thinking in terms of argument, you're already in trouble. Reagan said, if you're explaining, you're losing. And what is an argument other than explaining, right? So let's look at negotiation as collaboration. Let's look at it as navigation. Let's get away from this word argument. It's a word that's somewhat esteemed in the American culture. Make a great argument. And it just does you no good. No good. If you're explaining, you're losing. If you're arguing, you're losing. Now, your original question is how important is it to the other side, understand the other side's perspective? Two parts to that. Understanding is not enough. That's step one. It's a little like, you know, they say hope is not a strategy. Well, hope is an essential first step. I mean, you're going to have trouble getting anywhere without hope. It's just inadequate. It's not that it's not a strategy. Understanding is inadequate. What's more than adequate is demonstrating your understanding. You've got to let the other person feel understood. Now that's where the magic starts. And a lot of people will get that wrong because they'll say, all right, let me do a lot of research and make sure I do understand. If I'm satisfied, I understand, then I can tailor my argument. You can see how that's a downward spiral, well-intentioned, but you end up going down the wrong path. It's really the demonstration of understanding. And the magic is, which is also extremely counterintuitive, being corrected. being willing to be corrected. A lot of people are afraid. Again, their amygdala is whispering in their ear. You could be wrong. If you're wrong, it'll be embarrassing. Now, when you really dive into human nature, there's a reason the phrase, I thought I'd die of embarrassment. In point of fact, that everybody knows that survey. What are you most afraid of? Public speaking and being laughed at, or being executed? And people say, yeah, I'm more afraid of public speaking than dying.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's bizarre. But that's where our amygdala again whispers in our ear and really trips us up in terms of demonstrating understanding, because we're scared of being corrected. What happens when the other side corrects you? They love you. Like, you can get people to say stuff that is clearly against their interests if they're correcting you when they tell you. It's one of the magic aspects of the Black Swan method. We got a top 10 list of laws of negotiation gravity, which are pretty much laws of human nature. And number one on that list is the urge to correct is irresistible. People just cannot fight the urge to correct. It's insane what people, and we've seen people correct too. Recently, and this is the most bizarre story, in the online gaming community, these online gamers, they're trying to create a military game, and the gamers, the most fun for them is reproducing in their gaming environment the most sophisticated military technology. They could do a World War II game, but it ain't as much fun as figuring out what the Defense Department is deploying that's classified and trying to recreate it in a game. It's the most cutting edge stuff. So the gamers are working on this military tech, and they're speculating on one particular piece of hardware. And an actual on-duty member of the U.S. military emails the guy on the side and says, no, you got it wrong. This is what it is.
Whoa.
The urge to correct caused a guy to reveal sensitive information to a gamer because the urge to correct is so satisfying. And we use that all the time. It's one of the key aspects of the Black Swan method. Not only be willing to be corrected, but understand what kind of a superpower it is in your communication. And the other side will never regret it because it felt so good when they corrected you.
And when you're being corrected, I mean, people don't have the wherewithal to listen. I've seen throughout my life, people don't want to listen to other people. And how important is it to actually be able to take in that feedback? I mean, we have a mutual friend, Jeff Spencer, and he talks about human nature. He's just an incredible human being. And he talks about your brain. We all have that human nature to lose your confidence, to not go out and do the things you want to. And I think listening is one of those things that people don't do well enough. How important is it for folks to listen?
In every communication class of any type that you will learn, one of the few things that the Black Swan team agrees with all the other people that have written negotiation books, listening is always an advanced skill.
Advanced skill.
Listening is an advanced skill. At Wharton, it's an advanced skill. At the International Business School in Lausanne, Switzerland, IMB, it's an advanced skill. Everybody that studies communication understands that listening is an advanced skill, which means if you actually listen, you're at the top of the bell curve. You are ahead of all your competition because nobody else does. Most people think listening is waiting for a turn to talk, or listening is not talking, or even the old cliche, you should listen twice as much as you talk. It's actually 5 times as much as, but if you don't know that, then you're oblivious to it. It's a freaking superpower. People will tell you crazy stuff if you listen, and then the different emotional intelligence prompts that we teach in the Black Swan method. What are the triggers? What are the emotional intelligence triggers? So that you not only listen, but you trigger the other side into blurting out some stuff that you really need to hear, the black swans. One of them is correcting. Get them to correct you. That's not the only secret, but it's one of the most powerful. It's why it's one of the number one on our top 10 laws of negotiation gravity.
When you talk about emotional intelligence, our emotions are hardwired into our body. We're naturally thinking of survival all the time. And
Yep.
when you're in negotiations, you're thinking about survival unconsciously, probably you don't realize it. How do you get past that when you're up against that in an negotiation?
Yeah, think of it in terms of hygiene. Mental hygiene or emotional hygiene. Compare it to dental hygiene. You know, just I brushed my teeth yesterday. Does that mean I got to brush them again today?
Yes.
Yeah. Not only you got to brush them today, you probably need to brush them twice today, in the morning and the evening. Because of what you said before in this thing, we keep talking about the amygdala. Our survival mechanism is negative. It's going to kick back into gear if we let it. Your oral hygiene is going to work against you if you don't deal with it. Now you don't gotta brush your teeth for an hour twice a day. 15 minutes max. You probably adequately brush your teeth in about 3 minutes. Mental hygiene is not that different, but you got to address it every day. You have to take steps. Otherwise, your amygdala, which is 75% negative, our survival mechanism to keep us alive in the caveman days had to be negative. The only caveman that we survived from, that we're hardwired from, doesn't matter what your gender, your ethnicity, your religion, your diet. We're all descended from the same pessimistic caveman. The optimistic caveman walked by the cave and said, I realized when we went by here last week, Bill went in and he never came out. And there was growling and screaming. But I'm optimistic. I'm going in this week because I'm an optimist. That dude got eaten and does not have any descendants. The other caveman that said, you know what? I don't think so. I'm going someplace else. They survived. That's who we're descended from. So you can defeat your amygdala. You can have great dental hygiene. It doesn't take a lot, but it takes periodic addressing. And then it becomes a habit in the moment. Gratitude. I do gratitude exercise every morning. I do gratitude exercise every evening. I don't care what your mental hygiene is. If it's your religion, if you pray in the morning and in the evening, as long as it's an optimistic prayer, if there's optimism in there, whatever it is that works for you, you'll keep yourself on track. And then in the moment, what are the little hacks? Curiosity. Curiosity is this crazy, crazy mental hack because you can't be angry and curious at the same time. Curiosity is actually a positive frame of mind. Sean Acker, Harvard psychologist, did his phenomenal TED talk. I think it's called The Happy Secret to Better Work. Sean says you're 31 smarter in a positive frame of mind. I like that data source.
Wow.
If you're 31% smarter in a positive frame of mind, does that increase your chances of being successful significantly? I like those odds. I like those numbers. It just takes a little bit of effort, similar to brushing your teeth. A little bit of effort each day, and you'll find yourself in a pretty positive frame of mind.
And when you're in a positive state of mind, it allows you to really think about what do you want to do with your life, your time. Your time is your most valuable resource for all of us.
Yep.
But Chris, what do you see the future vision for yourself and for your companies?
Yeah, well, we're having a ball. I mean, teaching people the Black Swan method gives people better lives. And that is so much fun for us. I mean, like we breathe this stuff. So we want to expand a little bit more internationally. The book's in 33 countries, 27, 28 languages. It's all over the world. And I'm a believer in peace through prosperity. The more economically prosperous countries are, it doesn't solve all the problems, but you start working on poverty a little bit globally, and there's less reason for conflict. So you're a better negotiator. You're making everybody better off. You're collaborating on a larger scale. Your business is more effective. There are more jobs. I love that. We have the best time with this stuff. Weekly, we hear from a client, this deal is going to change my life. Weekly.
Wow.
And that's why, we want to expand globally. I want to collaborate with people internationally. Because I already know from hostage negotiation that the skills that the Black Swan method is based on works globally, this human nature wiring that we were talking about earlier. I didn't need to sell the book into 36 countries or however many countries we're in to know that it's going to work in every country. And the fact that it has sold well in all these countries is an indicator that people are applying the same ideas globally and making it work.
And why do you think that is?
Well, which part? Why does it work globally?
Yeah, why does it work globally?
Because of this human nature wiring that we were talking about before. It's hard for people to wrap their minds around it until they see some examples of the reality of the situation. Because we're taught, cross culture, you got to learn to deal with Japanese. When you're with an Arab, you can't show them the bottom of your feet. You can't pick up your teacup with your left hand. Well, we only run into problems culturally when we presume that our culture is the correct way to do it. That's where we run into problems, which really is the opposite of empathy. Empathy is about understanding where the other side's coming from. There ain't a human being on a planet doesn't want to be understood. I've seen no evidence that a vegan, an Arab, an Asian, a carnivore, a Latino, everybody wants to be understood. And these are tools to demonstrate understanding, which then unlock neurochemical responses. The limbic system is the emotional architecture that we were talking about a few moments ago. I think a great comparison is the respiratory system for a variety of reasons. The respiratory system has both intentional control and automatic control. You want to stop your breathing? If I ask you to hold your breath, you can hold your breath. You might have enough willpower to hold your breath till you pass out. The moment you pass out, your autopilot's going to kick back in. You're going to start breathing again. Your emotions are very similar. If I tell you to hold your anger, you can probably hold your anger for about as long as you can hold your breath. And then your autopilot's going to kick back into gear. Now, if you have a heart attack and you are in China and they call the paramedics, are the Chinese paramedics going to look at this? You look at you and say, no, this dude's not Chinese. We don't know how his respiratory system works.
No.
No, there's a universal aspect to it. The limbic system is very much the same way.
And that's a great piece of advice for everyone listening to this and watching this show. Like, we are all humans. And at the end of the day, we just want to be heard. Whether you're selling something, promoting something, or trying to help other people, we're all here to serve. We're truly here to serve. And when we do that, when we're in that right frame of mind, beautiful things can happen. Truly beautiful things can happen. What was one of the things that really stood out to you, Chris, after you published your book and got it out to the world?
Wow. Well, when we published the book, there were some things from hostage negotiation that we left out of the methodology because I didn't think that I couldn't imagine that they would be important, that all the dynamics from hostage and kidnapping negotiation would apply. And as we got more and more into actually coaching, the few people that are out there, we actually coach this stuff. And our coaching has a tendency to get better all the time because we're in actual negotiations all the time ourselves. And those three things just don't really exist anywhere else. Like, the Harvard guys, who are brilliant people. They're by and large making a living as teachers. And if their training business on the side falls apart, they still get a teaching gig. And none of them are actively coaching. They're attached to a mothership, to a university. Now, there are some really good companies out there that have sprung off on the side. Try consulting Sheila Heen's outfit, Sheila Heen Stone. Those are some sharp people. They could exist. They do a lot of emotional intelligence, team building stuff. They could exist outside of Harvard. They're sharp people. Their stuff is good. But they're not coaching as much as we are. So we're coaching this stuff on a constant and regular basis, and we're seeing the results. And I went off on such a tangent, I completely forgot what you originally asked me.
That's a good question when that happens. It's when you release things out into the public, such as your book. Yeah. I mean, beautiful things, magical things happen that you never would have expected. So what was like one of those that stood out to you, or a couple of them, however you want to answer that, Chris?
Well, it's a concept from hostage negotiation we didn't think would apply to the real world, called proof of life. In a kidnapping, we got to find out if the kidnappers that are talking, which in contact with, actually have the hostage. Is there a deal at all? And secondly, are they going to make the deal with you? Is there a deal, and is there a deal with you? Believe it or not, we got plenty of contacts from people that claimed to have a hostage who was missing, and they didn't have the hostage. Because they heard through their own grapevine that there was a kidnapping. They thought they'd move in real quickly themselves, score a ransom before the family, who was so scared, they just figured they got to pay. Wow. Before the family figured out they weren't the ones that had the hostage. Well, there's kidnappings come out of Mexico all the time, fake kidnappings. I had a friend of mine that I found out after the fact in LA, she got scammed out of 10 grand. Because they called her and convinced her that they had her daughter, which they didn't. But they horrified her so much that they convinced her to go down to Western Union and transfer $10,000, and her daughter was fine. But when you're caught in the grips of fear, they can sense that and they can move that quickly. So do they even have the hostage, and are they going to make the deal? As it turns out, this is a problem in private sector negotiations. There are tons of people that solicit you for business. They're just kicking the tires, or they're looking for free consulting, or they're looking for the rabbit, or what we refer to as the fool in the game. Shortly after the book came out, I got contacted by a guy who'd written a negotiation book. And he said, "Hey, your book is really great. I want you to know I wrote a book, and the people that I'm coaching, I give them your book." So I'm like, "All right, cool. Well, I like this guy. I'm going to read his book." And I'm reading his book, and in the middle of it, he starts talking about what to do when you're the rabbit. And I thought this was just a stupid idea from the movies. In the movies, they talk all the time about the company that's just there to drive the price down, and it's a complete sucker move, and they're never going to get the deal. I remember seeing that in a Vince Vaughn movie one time, and I was thinking like, yeah, okay, this is entertaining. This doesn't happen in real life.
Right.
And this guy's writing a bargaining book on what to do if you're the rabbit. I'm like, holy cow, like this nonsense. There's no deal at all. And the deal, you would never get the deal, proof of life. This actually exists. So, we were shocked. And then, we're coaching a Black Swan method now regularly. I have very good data that indicates that no less than 20% of your opportunities, you're the fool in the game. The people that we've taught this methodology to find the numbers running as high as 80%.
That's surprising.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
So, yeah, it's been very surprising. But imagine if you could just lop off 20% of your fake opportunities. What if you could get 20% of your time back? You don't even have to get any better to make more money.
That's huge. And, I mean, 20% of your time?
What's a 20% instantaneous raise worth? I'd take it.
A lot. It's a lot of money, honey. That's for sure. And a lot of happiness too, because you could buy back some of your freedom and earn back your time and go do whatever you want with that. So that's powerful too.
Exactly, which is the outgrowth of everyone that we've coached into this. They're happier.
Mhm.
There's less stress in their life. They got the weekends off. They're not answering phone calls at 10 o'clock at night or 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. They're much happier.
You're able to take more free days like they teach us in coach. And
Yep.
Chris, this is one question that I ask every single guest on the show. What does money mean to you?
Money's a means. Money increases our ability to do the cool stuff we want to do, whether it's personal or professional. I'm lucky enough that what I've done professionally has always been so satisfying, borderline fun, that I don't do a lot of vacations, the free days that you were talking about. Yeah, I ain't doing a lot. I ain't doing as many as Dan wants us to, which is actually really good advice, by the way. But money's a means to enjoy life, to give my family a better life. For my son Brandon, who runs the company and is a better negotiator than I am. Money is giving his daughter a life better than, materially better than he had. Now, just because it's better materially doesn't mean it's better emotionally.
True.
Unfortunately, Brandon is one of the best human beings I know. And he and his wife, Maya, my daughter-in-law and director of marketing, he's the president of the company. They are loving, generous, caring parents and surrounding their daughter with love and nurturing. This little girl's going to grow up to be a phenomenal human being. But that's what money does. Money gives us the opportunity to give the people we love better lives.
I love that answer. It's all about living a better life, and the money's the byproduct of that. So I'm in complete agreement with you, Chris. Thank you. Thank you. So please tell our listeners today how to subscribe to your newsletter.
Yeah, the text to sign up is the best way because the newsletter is a gateway
Yep.
to everything that we do. The website is blackswanltd.com, BLACKSWANLTD.com, is a host of free resources. If you subscribe to the newsletter via the text to sign up function, Black Swan method is a message to 33777. Black Swan method, spaces between each word, not cap sensitive. The number again is 33777. Now, the newsletter is actionable and concise, comes out on Tuesday mornings when you're ready to rock and roll. You've got Monday behind you. And also, it takes you to the website where there's an archive, a library of past actionable articles. So whether you're looking on for ways to make no work for you, how to negotiate a salary, how to do more team building, how to see if you're the fool in a game. You search the articles and we get a nice, concise, actionable piece there for you to work from and give you specific things to say. We just don't tee up the problem. We identify the problem and then we say this. And we give you some scripting to use, and you'd be very much like the brother in the Philippines. I script you out a little bit. We script you out a little bit in the Black Swan method. After 3 or 4 times following the script, you're going to come up with some brilliant stuff on your own. So that's what the newsletter will do to you. Start you on a path. We'll meet you where you are, and we'll help you advance.
And that's brilliant because you're a very generous, very giving person to actually help people with this and give all of that free content. So please make sure you go do the text to sign up today. Do that now and read the book, take his masterclass. That was one of the favorite things, my favorite master classes that I took. That and the meditation one was fantastic for me. But Chris, we've been in breakout rooms at Strategic Coach. I'm super incredibly grateful for our time today. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being an amazing guest.
This was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on.
Truly a pleasure. So Make sure you share this episode with your friends and family. Everybody, yes, everybody needs to be a better negotiator, and the Black Swan Group are the people to help you do that. So please make sure you follow the Retire As You Desire podcast, and can't wait to have you back at another episode. Thank you.